You know, I hear that every artist at some point drinks the water out of their paintbrush cleaning jar. That's why I fill mine with isopropyl alcohol. Because when the day comes that I drink this, it's gonna be worth it, damn it. But you're not here to watch me get drunk on paint water. You're here to watch me repaint a Hammond Collection Allosaurus. More specifically, a Hammond Collection Allosaurus with a Big Al replacement head from Marco Makes and Nate48. Now, surprise, surprise, this isn't my Allosaurus. It's another commission, and the owner would like it painted like the old Kenner Allosaurus. You know, the one with so many dino damage pieces that it's more dead than alive. Just a real quick note. If you ever want to see me paint a particular dinosaur in a particular way, commissioning it is the best way to see that happen. Now, as far as Allosaurus colorations go, this has always been one of my favorites. There's only a couple of colors, and they're all shades of brown, but there's just something about it that I think really works. And then there's this fan art of it by Fred Ward that is just absolutely badass. And as luck would have it, this is exactly the picture that was sent to me as reference material. So we're going to go ahead and get that head replaced, and then we're going to paint a Fred Ward Kenner Allosaurus. Now, this is the first Allosaurus head that I've replaced, so bear with me. As I understand it, you just heat it up and peel it off, more or less. Okay, that wasn't too bad. Although the pegs for the original head did break off in the peg holes, so we're going to summon the mosquitoes and grind those out. Well, that was annoying, but now we have a clean slate to put our new Allosaurus head on. We're just going to go ahead and dry fit this first, make sure everything lines up. If we glue it on first and it doesn't, it's going to be a hell of a lot harder to fix. Alright, everything looks cool. Bring on the super glue. If you've managed to go your whole life without actually using super glue, I'm going to tell you two things. Don't get it on your skin, and don't directly inhale it. Or do, but don't say I didn't warn you. Once the super glue is in, on, and around the peg holes, just throw the new head on. The pegs line up with the peg holes. What a concept, right? Now just hold the head in place for 3 minutes while the super glue sets. Now this Allosaurus has got a new Big Alley head on it. Let's see how it opens. What? Well, that was disconcerting. Maybe we should just move on with the base coat. We're going to use some more Vallejo Iraqi sand. It's certainly giving Warm Buff some competition for being my favorite base coat color. Base coating is easy, just time consuming. If you're using an airbrush, just spray it with paint until the whole thing is one solid color. Or if you're not using an airbrush, just brush it with paint until the whole thing is one solid color. It's easier to paint dinosaurs if we're starting with a blank canvas. And let's not forget the tail. That is an integral part of this dinosaur. It can't balance without it. Because apparently I just didn't get quite enough of the base coating, I'm going to add a little bit of classic caramel to the Iraqi sand, and we're going to go over the dorsal areas of the dinosaur with that. That'll just make the top part slightly darker. But just like we want the top slightly darker, we would like the ventral areas to be slightly lighter. So I have mixed some antique parchment with some khaki in my airbrush, and then added just a touch of dark gray. Of course, by this time we know that dark gray isn't really dark gray, it's actually a medium gray, and since it's only got a touch of it, it's just going to add just a hint of gray. And the only reason we want gray on this counter shading is because we want this Allosaurus to look at least half as badass as Fred Ward's Allosaurus picture. This right here, this is the bar. Okay, back to the counter shading. In Fred's awesome piece of art, that counter shading goes just over the jugal on the face. This part right here. So we gotta make sure we do the same thing with this Allosaurus. Also, since I'm not a billion-dollar toy company, I'm gonna make sure that this counter shading covers the entire underbelly of this dinosaur. With the counter shading done, I think that we're in a good place to start on the patterns. But what color should we use for those patterns? Brown. We're gonna use brown. More specifically, we're going to use real brown. We want something dark enough that it's going to stand out from the base color, but we also want something that's light enough that it's not just going to look black. Otherwise, we may as well be painting the Kenner Utah Raptor. And I've already done like 3 of those this year. Okay, maybe it was just 2. Okay, you know what guys? Real brown just isn't working for me. This is just a little too light. Since we actually want to see the patterns on this guy, I'm going to add a touch of burnt umber to the real brown. Stand by. That's more like it. Now that we can actually see the patterns taking shape on this dinosaur, we're going to do a series of stripes running down the torso. And between each of the larger stripes, we'll put a splotch. Because nothing says dinosaur like an alternating series of splotches and stripes, which we're going to go ahead and continue all the way down the tail too. And since we don't want a lopsided dinosaur, we're going to paint the right side too. You may notice that I will continually tilt this dinosaur as I continue to paint the patterns on the right side. That's because I'm checking out the patterns on the left side. I want to make sure that they're at least roughly the same size and shape. A symmetrical Allosaurus is a happy Allosaurus. And when we get down to it, I would like to paint happy dinosaurs. The KT extinction event was rough. These guys deserve a little bit of happiness. Because that uncut real brown was so light, I think it would be a wonderful color for some splotches. So I've watered some down, and I'm using it to add splotches to the face, neck, torso, and limbs. And that's just going to add some variation to that base tan color that it already is. Generally, I like how this Allosaurus is turning out, but it seems just a tad too far on the yellow side. I'm going to finish up this splotching, and we're going to give it an overspray with some territorial beige. The territorial beige is going to significantly tone down the yellowish color on this Allosaurus. It's also going to make the patterns appear much more faded, so we'll have to go back over them later. But since I was kind of planning on going back over them with the airbrush, that's no big deal. Speaking of going back over those patterns with the airbrush, it is time to firmly grip your Allosaurus by the neck
Can't breathe.
and start going over those patterns. Don't worry, no Allosaurus were harmed in the making of this video. Going back over all of these patterns with the airbrush is just going to help to bring back some of that definition that we lost when we did that overspray of territorial beige. And also, since we're using the airbrush, the colors of the patterns are going to fade into the base color in a much more natural way, making it look more like a real dinosaur. Once we finish the left side, we are going to repeat this process with the right side, because we still don't want a lopsided dinosaur. Some things never change. And we'll make sure that we go over those patterns all the way down to the wee tip of the tail. And because the Allosaurus on Fred Ward's artwork has a darker eye socket, we're going to make sure we give this one a darker eye socket too. I also want to bring out some of the texture on the scoots of the feet and hands, which means a dry brush. And the dry brush will look a lot nicer if I make those scoots darker first. So we're going to do some scoot painting real quick. And since my airbrush is already loaded up with a dark color that we use for the patterns, we'll just use that for the scoots. Guanchi. With the scoots darkened, we can start the dry brush. And khaki seems like a nice color for that, so we're going to do it with khaki. I'm of the opinion that the Hammond Collection Allosaurus is one of Mattel's crowning achievements, although all of their larger carnivores have been pretty good lately. Point is, there's an awful lot of detail on it, and nothing shows off detail like a nice dry brush. Dry brushing also has the added benefit of repelling Shrek, so we'll just dry brush a little bit on the head. Speaking of the head, this replacement head, man, you gotta see that in person. Well, I think we're getting to that fun part where we're gonna paint the eyeballs. Hopefully it's something I managed to do in front of the camera lens. Not so much apparently. I tried. Okay, that camera work is abysmal. I need a new cinematographer. Well, you couldn't really see it, but I painted the eyes harvest orange. And now I'm just going to add some dino snot. I've mixed up some metallic red with some burnt umber, and it made kind of a squashed raspberry color. Now we just use a toothpick and pick this dinosaur's nose. I added some greenish yellow to the Allosaurus's eye after the nose, but my camera work was still absolute dog crap. So here I am trying to paint a pupil with gloss black. It's not working out too well, man. Come on, stay in frame, stay in frame. Damn it. Well, eventually I managed to finish painting the Allosaurus's eyes. I just didn't manage to do it in front of the camera. Oh well, can't win them all. Alright, now we're going to try to knock out this Allosaurus's teeth, and we are using a combination of antique parchment and yellow ochre. Well, that wasn't too bad. While I was base coating this Allosaurus, I got some overspray of tan on the buccal flaps and tongue. So we're going to repaint that real quick with a combination of khaki and metallic red, with just a touch of classic caramel. And now I think it's probably time we ought to do the claws. We're going to copy Fred Ward's drawing and make them gray. I'm going to use dark granite. And fingers crossed, this looks half as cool. Alright, teeth, eyes, claws. I think that's everything. That means it's time for some dinosaur glamour shots. Well, that's it for this video. What should we do next week? Dilophosaurus? Maybe a piece of the Mesozoic Dilophosaurus. That could be fun.